Who's battled aliens, leveled cities, drowned, resurrected, mutated, and even become a father?
Godzilla.
One of the most iconic movie monsters in history, and naturally video games couldn't resist him either. But what happens when a skyscraper-sized creature has to fit into an 8-bit cartridge for the NES or into the limited memory of an arcade machine? In this video we'll trace the evolution of Godzilla in gaming, from a pixelated symbol of destruction to a cybernetic king of fighting games. And we'll try to answer one key question: is there such a thing as the perfect Godzilla game in 2025? Grab a drink, hit that subscribe button, let's begin. Chapter 1: Origins. Godzilla in 8-bit era. Godzilla's gaming career began in the early 80s when the fire-breathing kaiju first made its way onto the home computers and consoles. Back then developers weren't too concerned with scale. A monster the size of a building had to fit into just a few 16x16 pixels. One of the first titles was Godzilla, 1983. You didn't control Godzilla directly, you watched him on a strategy map moving from city to city, clashing with the military. As the player you made decisions, which targets to destroy, when to retreat, and which resources to wipe out. Next came Godzilla Monster of Monsters, 1988, a full-blown game where Godzilla and Mothra traveled through alien worlds, fighting monsters and platforming their way through stages. The gameplay mixed a strategic overworld with side-scrolling combat. No, there was no traditional Smash Tokyo mechanic, but you could launch Godzilla into space to fight cosmic kaiju. Logic? Well, none. Fun? For its time, absolutely. I still remember playing it as a kid and losing my mind from the sheer weirdness of it all. Then came Godzilla 2 War of the Monsters, 1992. Once again a strategy game. This time you played as the military trying to hold the kaiju at bay. It was basically a proto-tower defense game. Bases, units, artillery, and giant monsters who didn't care about any of it. These early games did not let you be Godzilla. He was something you commanded, something you feared, or just a scripted threat in the background. But even in that form he was already a recognizable force in gaming. At that time Godzilla games were more about the myth than the mechanics. No hardware could truly handle a creature of that scale, but seeing Godzilla on the box still meant something epic. What we got instead? Strange, janky, but somehow unforgettable. Chapter 2: Sprites, Screams and Showdowns. Godzilla in the 16-bit era. With the arrival of 16-bit consoles, Godzilla's video game form started to resemble the monster fans knew from the movies. Bigger, louder, more expressive. Sound effects kicked in, animations became recognizable, and most importantly, the focus shifted towards combat. One of the standout games of the decade was Godzilla KAIJU Daikessen, 1994, a full-blown 2D fighting game featuring kaiju. You picked Godzilla or one of his rivals like King Ghidorah, Biollante, Megalon and others, and clashed in classic side-by-side battles with destructible backgrounds and the occasional collapsing buildings. The mechanics were simple, but for fans, pure gold. For the first time, you didn't just watch Godzilla, you were Godzilla. The game never released outside Japan, but quickly earned cult status worldwide thanks to its monster roster and authentic film vibes. Then came Godzilla Generations, 1998 Dreamcast. Godzilla's first big step into 3D. Well, it's not actually 16-bit, it's more like 32 or even, like they said, 128 bits, but still. The concept: play as giant monsters slowly rampage through cities, smashing buildings, bridges, cars. The dream, no? In theory, yeah, amazing. A destruction simulator from the monster's perspective. In reality, the controls were a bit tragic, you know? Godzilla moved like he was stuck in the molasses wearing iron boots. Every punch had a second of delay. Every turn felt like a full rotation of the planet. Playing it, painful. Watching it, yeah, hilarious. I watched my friends play that on Dreamcast. Also worth noting, Godzilla the Series on the Game Boy Color, 1999, based on the animated spin-off of the infamous 1998 American Godzilla film, the one Japan refuses to recognize. It was a side-scroller where you played as Zilla, yeah, that one, fending off military forces. The plot was forgettable, but the sprites and visuals were surprisingly solid for a Game Boy Color. If the 8-bit era was all abstraction, the 16-bit era was the start of bringing the monster to life. The game still couldn't capture Godzilla's scale, but they began focusing on character instead of just the chaos. For the first time, Godzilla wasn't just a threat in the background, he became the fighter. During the 90s, expectations were set. A Godzilla game wasn't just a strategy map or a cool cutscene, it meant fighting, smashing and kaiju battles. And honestly, that expectation still lives on today. Chapter 3: The American Boom. Kaiju fighters and the ATARI era. The early thousands marked the most recognizable and downright brutal era of Godzilla in gaming. And surprisingly, it didn't come from Japan, it came from the West. American studio Pipeworks, under Atari's wing, launched a full trilogy of 3D kaiju fighters. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee 2002, Godzilla Save the Earth 2004, and Godzilla Unleashed 2007. These weren't just monster brawlers, they were full-on fan service fiestas. Somehow balancing nostalgia, chaos and legit gameplay, the trilogy let you pick from a huge roster. Godzilla in various forms like Showa or Hensei, King Ghidorah, Mecha Godzilla, Gigan and even Space Godzilla. And yes, you could hurl each other through skyscrapers and torch city blocks with beam attacks. Gameplay-wise, it leaned toward arcade-style fighters like Power Stone or WWE SmackDown. 3D arenas, grabs, throws, environmental destruction, finishers, charge attacks, beam weapons. Best of all, rocking the city wasn't just a visual stuff, it was part of the fight. Win or lose, Tokyo would never be the same. Visually, it held up well too, especially in Save the Earth, which even added underwater combat. The soundtrack slapped, the controls were responsive and multiplayer, absolute chaos in the best way. For couch gaming nights in the 2000s, this was a gift. Then came Godzilla Unleashed, which tried to go deeper with plot and more complex systems and kinda lost its own way. The Nintendo Wii version got hit the hardest. Motion controls felt less like kaiju combat and more like a window washing sim. The PS2 version was simpler but looked worse than its GameCube Xbox predecessors. Meanwhile, the franchise also got some support from the Godzilla the Series cartoon games and few mobile experiments, but the real spotlight stayed on Pipeworks' console fighters. For many Western players, this was the first time they truly enjoyed playing as Godzilla, not just in theory, not just on the box art, but actually feeling like the childhood dream monster, roaring, flaming and absolutely wrecking everything. Was it the perfect adaptation? Well, no, but for its time, it was the best blend of fan service and fun the franchise had ever seen. Chapter 4: Attempts of a Comeback. Pretty but broken. After the golden age of American kaiju brawlers, Godzilla's gaming presence faded into the background. But with a new decade came new attempts, not just to bring the monster back, but to elevate him to full-blown AAA status. The first serious shot was a game with the simplest possible name, Godzilla 2014, a PlayStation 3 exclusive that later hit PS4. On paper it sounded like a dream for fans. Full Toho-style presentation, huge monsters roster, 20+ kaiju including multiple Godzillas, Mecha Godzillas and even Biolanta, destructible environments, cinematic cutscenes, Japanese-style title cards. In practice, it was an acquired taste. The gameplay was slow, even sluggish. Godzilla moved with a grand, majestic weight, which felt atmospheric, yeah, until you realized you were spending 90% of the time just walking. The camera had a mind of its own, attack animation had delay, the UI felt ripped straight from 2006. You could tell the developers loved the source material, but they seemed to ignore modern design standards. Toho superfans? They were in heaven. Everyone else? They ran. Critics torched it. One reviewer famously called it the best-looking PS2 game on PS4. And no, that wasn't a compliment. Meanwhile, Godzilla pivoted to mobile, and oddly enough, that side did way better. Godzilla Kaiju Collection 2015, card-based gacha. Godzilla Defense Force 2019, an idle clicker where you build a base and defend against monster waves. Godzilla Battle Line 2021, real-time PvP with mini kaiju squads. These weren't trying to be the ultimate Godzilla experience, but they delivered where it counted. The monsters looked great, the skills felt authentic, and the card collection was addictive. Plus, they kept things fresh with frequent updates and crossovers from Shin Godzilla to Godzilla Singular Point. point. That said, let's be real, these were still service games, side content, not full titles. And by the late 2010s, a new reality set in. Godzilla has legendary status, but his games are either low-effort mobile spins or weird niche projects. Fans were hoping for something huge, especially with the hype from new films like Godzilla King of the Monsters and Shin Godzilla. But the industry seemed lost, as if no one knew what to do with a character this big, literally and metaphorically. Chapter 5. The Invited Monster. Crossovers, cameos, and meme coronation. When Godzilla can hold his own in standalone games, he gets invited elsewhere. And in the 20s, the King of Monsters became a go-to guest star in all kinds of genres. If there's action, shooting, or chaos, throw a kaiju. And they did. One of the loudest comebacks, Call of Duty Warzone 2022. Yep, Godzilla vs. Kong in a battle royale. The event was called Operation Monarch. Giant monsters roamed the map, players could collect titan damage, call in laser strikes, and trigger full-on PvE chaos. Was it awesome? Yes and no. Visually, hell epic. Gameplay-wise, many said it felt more like background noise than a real mechanic. Still, Godzilla was center stage again, and that alone was enough to blow up TikTok. Meanwhile, he showed up in Fortnite. Well, sort of. No direct appearance, but collab events tied to Godzilla vs. Kong plus plenty of skin and emote nodes. Fans even built custom kaiju arenas in creative mode, and while he wasn't an official fighter, kids happily staged battles between monsters on rooftops of Eiffel Tower and Gucci stores. Also worth mentioning, PUBG Mobile. Limited time Godzilla vs. Kong event with kaiju looming in the background during matches. Fall Guys, Godzilla, Mechagodzilla and King Ghidorah skins in squishy bean form, adorable and terrifying at the same time. Override 2, Arena Fighter, where Godzilla and Co arrived via paid DLC, a small but honest return to monster brawling. The thing is, in all these appearances, Godzilla isn't the main character, he's a brand that gets invited to make some noise. Not the lead in the story, but a marketing mask, a limited time skin, just a hype machine, you know? On the one hand, that says a lot about his staying power. Godzilla's basically becomes like Darth Vader, originally a dramatic, allegorical figure, now a plug-and-play icon you can toss into anything with a store. On the other hand, it's kind of sad. The monster that once symbolized nuclear devastation and humanity's downfall is now breakdancing in Fall Guys with a pink backpack? What? I don't know. Drop your thoughts in the comments, let's talk it out there. I'll keep thinking about it in the rest of the video. Chapter 6. Why there is still no perfect Godzilla game. In this video we didn't cover every Godzilla game ever made. We picked about half of them, maybe even less. I tried to focus more on the ones that, in my view, actually shaped the monster's legacy in gaming. And still, whether from my own memories or during the research for this video, I never found the ultimate Godzilla appearance. Not in a standalone title, not even in a cameo. Given the size of the franchise, literally and metaphorically, it seems like a rhetorical question. How is there still no great Godzilla game? The monster is iconic, the fan base exists, the legacy is enormous, and yet we keep getting either mid-tier fighters or weird mobile side projects. So why? Reason 1. Genre identity crisis. What should Godzilla be in a game? A playable character? A boss? A force of nature you watch from afar? He's canonically been a hero, villain, protector, destroyer, anti-hero, all of it fits. But for game design, that's nightmare. Make him a playable fighter and it's just another brawler. Make a destruction simulator, it risks getting repetitive in minutes. Make him an unstoppable threat and players never get to be Godzilla. Reason 2. Scale. Most games are designed around humans and how they interact with the world. Well, Godzilla is the world. And the walk slowly and smash stuff gameplay loop is fun for 5 minutes, then either gets boring or turns into a glorified QTE sequence. Reason 3. Licensing chaos. 1 minute Toku's in charge, then Bandai, then some US publisher, then it's a gacha, then an anime, then a movie tie-in. There's no consistent creative center, unlike Marvel or Nintendo, so each new Godzilla game feels like another guess, not a continuation. And reason 4. The market. Giant monster games are niche, too niche for AAA budgets. If you're spending tens of millions, you want millions of units sold. And right now Godzilla isn't a guaranteed hit, not in the West, not even in Japan. This isn't Spider-Man, it isn't Elden Ring, And yet, the fanbase is strong, the IP has massive potential, and if someone ever nails it, the lore, the scale, the fan service, the mechanics, the love, that game wouldn't just be good, it'll be legendary. The one we'll finally call, they did it. But until then, all we have is the idea, the myth, the hope.
How many of these things are there?
17 and counting.
That's the path the King of the Monsters has taken in video games, from pixelated strategy games to full-on 3D fighters, from strange mobile apps to blockbuster cameos. Godzilla's been everywhere, but the perfect game, the ideal one, still missing. Maybe he's just too big for genre boxes, or maybe no one's had the guts to truly go all in, but the story isn't over. And in the meantime, you can always revisit the classics, or just rewatch your favorite movie and say it again. Yeah, that's still Godzilla.